Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Wednesday, December 29. This is Africa 54.
Somali Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Roble speaks by telephone with a senior U.S. official about the political standoff with the country's president. A Ugandan screenwriter, film director, and producer talks about his new deal with Netflix. We'll have a report. And a neighborhood in the New York City borough of Brooklyn wows visitors with its spectacular Christmas lights.
We begin our broadcast with the escalating dispute between Somali President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo and Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Roble. According to a statement from a government spokesman on Wednesday, Roble has spoken to a U.S. senior official about the situation. David Doyle has more.
Somali Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Roble spoke with a senior U.S. official, a government spokesman said on Wednesday, amid an escalating row with the president. The senior advisor to Roble said on Twitter that the PM had spoken to Molly Phee, U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, about the, quote, political situation in Somalia, security and elections. On Monday, President Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed suspended Roble for suspected corruption. Roble denounced that move as a coup attempt. On Tuesday, troops loyal to the Prime Minister camped in an area near the presidential palace, raising tensions in the capital, Mogadishu. This is the latest in a long-running feud between the two men over delayed legislative and presidential elections. And the dispute is widely seen as distracting the government from fighting an insurgency by the Al-Qaeda-allied Al-Shabaab group.
David Doyle, Reuters filed that report. Rescuers in Sudan on Wednesday are working to retrieve the dead and injured from a gold mine in a remote area of the country 3 days after it collapsed, killing at least 32 people. Khaled Daweya, director of the state-owned Sudanese Mineral Resources Company in West Darfur State, says 32 bodies have been recovered from the mine in West Kordofan, in addition to 3 people rescued with injuries. The mine collapsed Sunday evening when, according to witnesses, about 40 people were believed to be inside at a depth of more than 20 meters. The accident happened in an area where unregulated mining often occurs. As South Africans celebrate the life of anti-apartheid hero Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who died on Sunday, his daughter Nontombi Naomi Tutu, a reverend herself, is recalling the day her father stepped in to save a young man from being burned alive by an angry mob as one of her proudest memories. At a funeral in July of 1985 on the outskirts of Johannesburg, video footage shows Tutu clearly visible in his purple clerical robes, stepping in to push back against angry young mourners who were beating and kicking a defenseless man curled up in the fetal position, accused of being an apartheid collaborator. The man is doused with petrol and is moments away from having a tire placed around his neck, doused with flammable liquid, and then set on fire. The intervention of Tutu and other clergy saved the man.
To see him going in, you know, there were so many things striking about it. One was that he had the courage to go into the crowd and say, no, this is not how we do it. But the other is that those young people listened, right? That there was a dignity in our struggle, that these young people, they could have said, Sugawena, who are you to tell us about these people who are selling us out? But there was still that respect for Udedi and the other clergy, that, you know, here are clergy people who are asking us to step back from this action.
Scores of people continue to pay their last respects to Archbishop Desmond Tutu at St. George's Cathedral, where bells tolled for 10 minutes at noon local time for a second day on Tuesday, a homage set to be repeated every day until Friday. Tutu led numerous campaigns and marches against apartheid from St. George's Cathedral steps. Research by South African scientists suggests that Omicron could displace the Delta variant of the coronavirus because infection with the new variant boosts immunity to the older one. The study only covered a small group of people and has not been peer-reviewed, but revealed that people who were infected with Omicron, especially those who were vaccinated, developed enhanced immunity to the Delta variant. The analysis enrolled 33 vaccinated and unvaccinated people who were infected with the Omicron variant in South Africa. While the authors found that neutralization of Omicron increased 14-fold over 14 days after the enrollment, they also found that there was a 4-fold increase in neutralization of the Delta variant.
We looked at immunity to Delta in people infected with Omicron, and we found that the immunity is enhanced, which means that people that were infected with Omicron are less likely to be reinfected with Delta.
Sigo says that results from small studies of COVID-19 had generally held when tested in larger studies, and that the findings would help change policymakers' responses to the pandemic in South Africa. According to an earlier South African study, there is reduced risk of hospitalization and severe disease in people infected with Omicron compared with the Delta variant, though the authors say some of that is likely due to high population immunity. The Omicron variant has since spread worldwide. Hundreds of children in Kenya's malaria-prone western region were inoculated with doses of the newly approved Moscorex malaria vaccine on October 7th. At the time, Phoebe Watende, a 23-year-old who lives in western Kenya, told Reuters she had enrolled her 2-year-old daughter in the trial program because her family had suffered frequent malaria infections. Her daughter received her 4th and last dose at Yala Sub-County Hospital. Moscorex has been 30 years in the making, and experts hope the fight against malaria might gain considerable ground following the World Health Organization's recommendation that the vaccine developed by GlaxoSmithKline should be widely given to children in Africa. The ride-sharing company Uber is collaborating with the Swedish Kenyan electric vehicle group Archbishop to deploy 3,000 electric motorcycles in Kenya and the region in 2022. The switch to electric vehicles could significantly reduce air pollution as motorcycle taxis employ millions across the continent. Juma Majanga reports from Nairobi.
Josephat Mutiso is carrying a passenger on his noiseless, smokeless electric motorcycle in the streets of Nairobi. Just as in most cities across Africa, motorcycle taxi drivers are in almost every corner of Nairobi. Mutiso is among the first drivers here to have switched from fossil fuel to electric motorcycles, thanks to the partnership between Uber and Opibus.
This is way efficient. It is even way easier to ride than the other one. You see, this one you don't have so many controls. You just have the throttle, no clutch. The only thing you are focusing on is just the front brake and the rear brake. That way it gives you even more control of the bike. And it is pretty light. It does not vibrate. So even clients like this one better.
Motorcycle taxis, also referred to as boda boda, have become increasingly common as public transportation in cities across Africa.
The number of newly registered motorcycles commonly used as taxis or boda boda was estimated in 2018 at 1.5 million and will likely grow 5 times million by 2030. Most are inefficient, poorly maintained, and heavily polluting. UNEP studies show that boda boda drivers can more than double their income if they make the switch.
The UN Environment Programme, or UNEP, in March launched the first electric bikes project in Kenya setting the ball rolling for Africa's shift to electric mobility. The partnership between Uber and Opibus seeks to accelerate that shift.
We're just excited to get as many people exposed to the new technology that we build as possible so that they know that it's an option. Uber provides obviously a lot of boda riders. That's our target, that's our client target. They often don't know how beneficial our electric motorcycles can be in terms of money saving, in terms of safety, fuel savings, maintenance savings, you know, that kind of thing, and longevity of the product as well. They don't know that.
Across the world, there's a movement toward electric vehicles due to rising pollution and climate-damaging emissions from vehicles.
Targeting Africa and African countries is also part of that movement, and as Opibus, that's where we're targeting. We want all of us to move together, as you know, we all move towards a greener energy, a greener economy, and we can only do that if we all come together and empower and build capacity, you know, locally.
Mutiso says he is making more money now.
Everything I used to earn and save for the bike, for the maintenance of the bike, right now I'm saving it. So right now I'm making more.
Experts say a global move to electric mobility is essential in the future, and drivers like Mutiso will benefit. Juma Majanga for VOA News, Nairobi.
Let us know what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. Our address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also, check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, a Ugandan screenwriter, film director, and producer talks about his new deal with a streaming giant. But first, Haiti Adams tells us what's coming up on Wednesday's Straight Talk Africa.
On the next edition of Straight Talk Africa, we'll explore the multiple waves of the global African diaspora. Diasporan communities are found in nearly every part of the world. But how has their connection to the continent changed over generations? We'll also profile young diasporans making their mark in American politics. Be sure to join me, Haiti Adams, on the next Straight Talk Africa.
A report released earlier this year by the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization says the film industry in Africa could be a new game changer. With projected revenue of about $20 billion, the industry is likely to create 20 million jobs. In Uganda, The Girl in the Yellow Jumper, produced and directed by Lukman Ali, started streaming on Netflix this Christmas holiday. Africa 54 technology correspondent Paul Ndiho spoke to Ali, a Ugandan screenwriter, film director and producer, about his new deal with Netflix.
Lukman Ali, welcome to Africa 54.
Thanks for having me.
So you are the new kid on the block. You recently signed a deal with Netflix, the first Ugandan to do that. How are things going for you?
Pretty normal. Not much has changed for me, but I've been around for close to 5 years now. Been doing films. It's just that maybe I haven't been mainstream, but I've been around. And yeah, most of my colleagues in the film industry have received the news quite well, and a lot of people are happy for me, which is really good. And yeah, I'm quite excited to be part of the Ugandan cinema history.
Good, and a bigger congratulations from my end to you, sir.
Thanks a lot.
How does it feel to be playing in the major leagues?
Well, I don't know how to feel since this movie was made in 2019, and I've since made 2 other films. So this is like someone bringing up my very old work. So I'm happy to see it, but I've since moved on to better things. Puts me in a very interesting position where I have to be happy with my old work, which is very, very hard for most artists.
Interesting, the fact that you don't think this is one of your best works, and here you are, it's the one that has gotten some kind of international acclaim.
This was meant to be in the cinema on the 14th of April, but we had a countrywide lockdown, and those days changed. I think they cancelled it like a week before, so we ended up not showing it. And because of that, I had to find alternatives. So we got a distributor, and this distributor sent it to Netflix. It's been in the works for some time, and now it's going to be on. So since then, I've done 2 projects after that, which was The Blind Date and 16 Rounds, which are on YouTube. I put them up on YouTube. I'm very proud of the accomplishment, and I think it's amazing.
How did you get into film production?
First time I remember, like, movies, I was around the age of 8. I think I watched a movie called We Were Soldiers, and I was really amazed by the whole action sequences and all that stuff. And I grew up watching the likes of Rambo, all these films. So I was very interested in being part of the whole thing. Started out just doing them on the weekend when I'm not working, until I think they were decent enough for me to live off making TV commercials and now movies. As a film producer in Uganda, what are some of the challenges you run into on a daily, day-to-day basis? The internet is very expensive, and even if we do get our movies on Netflix, very few people will be able to afford to watch them. It makes it an undesirable market for all the streamers, because if people can't watch, then what's the point? Why invest in local talent if the locals will not watch? In Uganda, it's really difficult to film outdoors. This is why most of our movies are indoors, because anytime you're caught filming outside, it becomes a court case. You don't have a conducive environment to do your thing, to nurture your talent. It's very difficult. There's just isn't an official way of doing things. If I hear you correctly, how can the Ugandan government support the creative industry or the movie industry? I don't know. I'm sure there's even like a space program in Uganda, but have you ever seen any astronauts from Uganda? So us having a body doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be functional. So we might have these things in place, but they're not readily accessible to everyone. And some of these people, there might be a person that you talk to, but when you reach this person, they're not aware that they're the ones you're supposed to talk to. So they'll send you to someone else, and you'll be in that loop of go to this person, go to this person, go to this person, and until you give up. Lukman, thank you so much, and I wish you the best of luck with your new endeavors with Netflix and all the movies that you are trying to put out there. Thank you.
That was Africa 54 tech correspondent Paul Ndiho speaking to Kampala-based film director and producer Lukman Ali. Since an artist garnered $69 million earlier this year for digital artwork tied to blockchain technology, artists and fans are taking an increasing interest in so-called non-fungible tokens. Tina Trin explores the technology that's disrupting the art world.
The worlds of art and technology were on display at a recent show in New York City.
I think the best and most talented artists have always looked to technology, to new formats, to be able to take their art to the next level.
That includes turning digital art into non-fungible tokens, or NFTs, digital collectibles linked to blockchains, encrypted distributed ledgers that validate their origins and authenticity. Liz Yang works at Definity, a nonprofit with its own blockchain network called the Internet Computer. Definity helps artists turn their works into NFTs, which are minted, traded, and sold on the platform.
From a provenance perspective, you would know exactly where the art originated from and where it's been sold, into perpetuity, essentially.
That's important for digital art, which is typically easy to copy. Owners of NFTs hold the authorized original art in a digital wallet. In addition to giving digital artists more exposure, NFTs allow them to make money in different ways.
There are a lot of cases where artists sell art at a time where they're not that famous, And then later on down the line in the secondary markets, the art sells for many, many multiples more, but they don't reap any of the rewards.
Blockchain platforms use smart contracts that are programmed to execute transactions based on certain conditions.
Because it's code, you can stipulate in the code that artists receive a percentage cut of every secondary market transaction thereafter.
Critics say the buzz around NFTs make it a highly speculative market, and it remains to be seen whether the current movement is a bubble that will eventually burst. Still, artists like Neil White are excited for the new medium.
It's pretty fun to kind of feel like I'm sort of making art in like a more like futuristic form.
And that future may well be filled with NFTs. Tina Trin, VOA News, New York.
The Arlington, Virginia Philharmonic is a professional symphony orchestra that promotes the value of classical music. VOA's Philip Alexiou talks to its conductor and visits a live orchestra concert where members perform before an outdoor audience after a long pandemic-imposed break.
My name's Scott Wood, and I'm an orchestra conductor.
So I've got a concert today with an orchestra called the Arlington Philharmonic. This is going to be a really interesting project because we are basically performing for an audience, almost rehearsing it and performing it almost at the same time because of COVID restrictions. So we haven't had a place to rehearse indoors, but we really wanted to reconnect with audiences and put on a concert. So we're going to have a short rehearsal, showtime, followed immediately by the concert. And I'm intending to tell the audience that this is the way that we're presenting this one. I think they'll kind of appreciate how spontaneous it is and how quickly the orchestra can actually learn music.
You know, we have about an hour to rehearse it and then we perform. So the pressure's on.
Okay. Here we go.
Get back out. You know, we've come to the concerts in the past before COVID, and you know, had to go through last year with none of this, so it was great to get a chance to come out again.
It's so nice to roll right down here in the neighborhood. We love Scott's personality.
I thought they were very talented, especially knowing that, you know, they just had a short rehearsal right before the concert.
A neighborhood in the New York City borough of Brooklyn is stunning visitors with its spectacular Christmas lights. The Dyker Heights neighborhood boasts some of the most over-the-top holiday displays. Eleanor Wolf takes us there in this story narrated by Anna Rice.
It's one of New York City's most stunning and magically decorated neighborhoods during the holiday season. Brooklyn's Dyker Heights neighborhood has united people for 3 decades with its spectacular lights display.
It's all positive energy. You know, it's not a political thing. Everybody is together and everybody enjoys, and it's a festive thing. So it's a beautiful thing. It's something that everybody can have.
Ron bought a house in Diker Heights in 2014. Each Christmas since then, he has gotten more garlands, lights, and extension cords.
There is no vision. Everybody is expressing themselves a different way. Some people have white lights, some people have colored lights. I have a nativity, which I'm going to put tomorrow. The true meaning for us is the birth of Jesus. So that's what is going to be the centerpiece of my display.
Respecting the unspoken neighborhood rule, Ron continues the tradition that was started by his neighbor, the local Mrs. Klaus, Lucy Spada. VOA spoke with Spada in 2019.
1986, I moved here, and it was done in memory of my mother. And it started very small. I was the only house that did it on this block. And then it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. First, everybody complained about it, but then everybody chipped in, everybody, put into it, and it became bigger than...
And Christmas.
Yeah, it got big. I never thought it would.
After a quiet year in 2020 due to COVID-19, tourists and locals, protected with vaccines, boosters, and masks, have found their way back to the bright and jolly lights of Diker Heights.
We're coming from Chicago. Yeah, we enjoy the day here. So beautiful. It's totally different.
I'm actually from New York. I've lived here all my life, and this is the first time I've ever seen this. I mean, I wish I was here when I was a child, yes.
Here you see people live here, they do it for the people. So there is like a hominess feeling when you go here. Like, I could go into this house, I could have like a hot chocolate right now and be surrounded by those lights. So I think that's what people like here.
Angels, nutcrackers, polar bears, and of course reindeer. Diker Heights is not afraid of being too big, imaginative, or magical. This house is decorated in honor of Michael, a teen who has muscular dystrophy.
Michael's on the sign over here. He has Duchenne muscular dystrophy, which is ultimately a fatal disease. It affects all the muscles in the body. So we light this beautiful house to help raise awareness. These beautiful green lights look like Emerald City in The Wizard of Oz. There's over 50,000 lights over here, but they're also the symbol of Duchenne muscular dystrophy, the green color. So that's part of the reason why he lights it in green as well.
Capolongo doesn't live here. He says this house belongs to a neighbor who has helped him raise over $2 million for muscular dystrophy research. A neighborhood that continues to bring hope and joy, even in the most difficult of times. For Eliana Wolf in New York, Anna Rice, VOA News.
Stunningly beautiful. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.